Well, good afternoon. It's been quite an afternoon. One that has been very interesting and that has taken us all a lot of places. I was going to surprise you by telling a story, but my introducer, not to mention my predecessor up here on this platform, have kind of jumped the gun. But I think I'll go ahead and tell it anyway. Once there was a little guy who had a big job to do. It was a very difficult, very dangerous job, and he didn't want to do it. But neither did anybody else. So after that usual awkward pause in the conversation where everybody is waiting for somebody else to speak first, and nobody did, he said, "Okay, I'll go." And he went. But when he got there, he found the job was too big for him. He couldn't handle it. He failed. The fact that somebody else came along and got the job done almost by accident didn't make him feel any better about himself. He came home safe and sound, wiser, but sadder. Okay, that in a nutshell is the plot of The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. Don't get me wrong. There's lots of other stuff in it too. It's not all doom and gloom. There's a lot of laughter, a lot of good food, a lot of singing and jokes. There are elves and dwarves and wizards and talking trees. So it is in some respects, with a nod to my preceder on this platform, it's a place you can escape to. But when you get right down to it, it's the story of Frodo Baggins, his 700-mile trip on foot to destroy the Ring of Power, and his failure to do so. For all the talking trees and all the alarums and excursions and all the battles, you take away Frodo, and there's no story. I've often wondered why it is that The Lord of the Rings has a polarizing effect on people. Some people love it, take it to bed with them, read it on the bus, read it while they're brushing their teeth. Other people hate it, can't stand it, call it escapism, call it juvenile trash, kid stuff, nothing that anybody would take seriously. Well, we're talking here today also about the power of words, and I think that it is the power of a word, the word hobbit. I think it gives many people who haven't read the book the wrong impression. Hobbit sounds kind of cute, sounds like rabbit. Hobbits have funny names like Baggins and Boffin and Grub and Chub and Took. And it's difficult, if you don't know what they're doing, to take them seriously. Hobbits are little people. They're only 3 feet tall. So they remind many people of leprechauns, pixies. The English have a wonderful word for this kind of whimsy. They call it twee. And I think a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that The Lord of the Rings is twee. that it's cute, that it's whimsical, that it's escapism, when in fact, it's a very tough book, and a book that needs to be taken seriously as Huck Finn, or The Catcher in the Rye, or Breaking Bad, because these are all books about people caught in situations that are too big for them, caught in situations that they are not equipped to handle and don't know what to do with. That's what makes The Lord of the Rings, I think, the book that it is. And the thing that puts people off, that is the size of hobbits, is part of the importance of the book. If Frodo's journey is the plot, then Hobbit size is the theme. Because the theme is about little people in a big world. Little people getting up every day and facing a job that might very well be too big for them. Early in the book, Tolkien has one of his characters voice this pretty well. Elrond says at the council where they decide what's to be done with the ring, "Such is oft the course of deeds that move the wheels of the world. Small hands do them, because they must, while the eyes of the great are elsewhere." Well, the eyes of the great are certainly elsewhere where it comes to hobbits, because most people, even in the book, look right over their heads. It's as if they're not there. They're insignificant. They're overlooked. They're undervalued. And that is Tolkien's point. That's what he wanted to write about, and to elevate to the level of realism in stories by using instead the mode of fairy tale. Tolkien himself had a great deal of respect for small people. He said, "I've always been impressed by the fact that we are here, surviving, because of the indomitable courage of quite small people against impossible odds." Well, we are here, and we are surviving. And I don't have to tell you that while we're sitting here in this room, all over the world, a lot of quite small people are facing impossible odds with indomitable courage. Now, Frodo, Tolkien's hero, doesn't want to face impossible odds. He doesn't want to be a hero. He says flat out, what he says is, "I'm not made for perilous quests. I feel very small." There we go. There it is. And he is very small. And that's the whole point, that he is too small for the job. So we've been talking here this afternoon and this morning in a lot of wonderful sessions about the human experience. The part of the human experience that I want to talk about is failure. Because failure is a necessary part of what it is to be human. All of us fail sometime, somehow, at something or other. And if we don't learn how to meet that, how to cope with it, I don't say how to get used to it, because you don't want to do that either, but how to acknowledge it, then we've kind of missed the boat. What Frodo sets out to do shapes him as a human being. His own story, like water over rocks, makes him what he is. But as a character, he's not very interesting. You ask any lover of the Lord of the Rings, and I'm sure you must know somebody, who their favorite character is. And dollars to donuts, they'll say Sam, or Strider, or Treebeard, or even Gollum. What they won't say, I guarantee you, is Frodo. I have taught the Lord of the Rings for 40 years, and I have never had a student come up to me and say, I just love Frodo. Because he's hard to love. He's a problem character. He's under stress for almost 90% of the book, and you know yourself that people under stress are not the most comfortable people to be around, even when they're you. That's the way it is with Frodo, and that's why for all that he's the center of the book, he is not anybody's favorite character. He is not as interesting, for example, as his opposite number, Gollum, who is many people's favorite character, who is, I think, one of the most memorable villains in modern literature, and one of the most unforgettable characters. And this brings us back to the power of the word, because it's through Gollum's own words that Tolkien creates his character. Gollum is 600 years old, but he has regressed to the linguistic level of a 2-year-old. He talks baby talk. He talks about hobbitses and little mices. He mixes up his tenses. He talks about himself in the plural or in the third person. He's cute in a perverse sort of way. But that cuteness is important because it's part of his evil. And that's a bad combination. If Frodo is in the book to show that little people can be heroic, Gollum is in the book to show that evil can be understandable, can be even pitiable, because Gollum is pitiable. And he and Frodo together make up two sides of the same coin. Each of them is what the other could have been. Each of them is what the other might still be, and that goes both ways. If Gollum still has a chance to be a good guy, Frodo still has a chance, and a very good chance, of failing to be a good guy. If we dismiss Gollum then as evil, if we say of him, that's a way I'll never be, then we don't understand Frodo, because that's a way that Frodo, in the course of the book, is in danger of becoming more and more and more. He's a quiet character. Gollum is an exciting one, but Gollum also, in a sense, is a split personality. I won't say that he's half Gollum and half Frodo, because he doesn't get to that level, but he certainly is half Gollum and half Smeagol. Poor Smeagol. He went away long ago. They took his precious, and he's lost now. Gollum doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know whether he's Gollum or whether he's Smeagol. He does know that Smeagol is lost. He does know, in a sense, what's happening to him. And that presents a picture of what Frodo must realize, seeing Gollum, is happening to him. When Frodo gets to the end of his journey and he fails to destroy the ring, he realizes that he has failed. He realizes that his whole life and his journey have been to this moment and that they have not succeeded. So that's one aspect of the human experience that we all need to pay attention to and to understand and to respect. But we need to look at Frodo and Gollum for another thing that Tolkien thinks is important, and that is moral ambiguity. Is Frodo the good guy? He's the one who doesn't destroy the ring. Is Gollum the bad guy? He's the one who does destroy it. Okay, by accident. But he is the one who accomplishes the quest. Tolkien wanted to make sure that readers of his book, who got past the word hobbit, knew that this is a world of moral ambiguity, a world of great complexity, a world where it's not always easy to tell the good guys from the bad guys, because sometimes they look like each other, sometimes they behave like each other. When the story is over, not when the novel is over, because the novel goes on into a kind of extended coda, but when the story is over, Frodo gets nothing. He doesn't even get a consolation prize. He loses the ring, and he spends the rest of his life missing it. He says it is gone forever, and now all is dark and empty. That's a pretty bad picture of a life to be looking at, and it's one that he has to look at. Gollum, on the other hand, gets exactly what he wants. He does get the prize. He grabs the brass ring or the gold ring, which is the thing that he's been wanting all along, and he holds it up and he looks at it and he says, whoop, oh, my precious, my precious, my precious. And he falls into the fire with the ring. Which of them do you think is better off? I think Tolkien wanted you to ask yourself that question. He wanted you, as the previous speaker made very clear, to empathize, not just with Frodo, but with Gollum. Frodo in his loss and bereavement and bitter self-knowledge, Gollum in his joy, in his ecstasy, in his triumph when he gets the ring and falls to his doom. I'm going to close with one more quote, and I hope I can get through it because it always makes me cry. But he says, I tried to save the Shire, and it has been saved, but not for me. It must always be so when things are in danger. Someone has to give them up, lose them, so that others may keep them. Well, there it is. That's the story of The Lord of the Rings. Tolkien's world, Tolkien's Middle-earth, is not an easy world. It's complex, it's morally ambiguous, it doesn't come up with easy answers. It's very much like our world. And that's the one we're stuck with. That's all we've got. And that's what Tolkien wanted us to know. I think. Thank you.